We just spray painted the of this jet.
And the one behind it.
Yeah.
Each unit costs nearly $600,000, and it's being funded by taxpayers.
Anytime you think, next time, this is very American of me, just think, this is wrong.
Crazy activists target Taylor Swift, but fail hilariously. LA's latest homelessness initiative is crazy expensive, a Republican defends pushing Christianity in public schools, and a TikToker explains why Americans are so much worse than Canadians. All this and so much more is coming up on today's episode of Brad vs. Everyone, my daily series where I take on the craziest ideas from across our politics and across the internet from a center-right, independent perspective. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and sticking around, and if you're a returning viewer, you already know what I'm going to say. Don't forget to hit that like button and do comment with your thoughts as we go along. I do read the comments and I pick a few to respond to every day. Now, before we get into our serious topics for the day, I want to show you guys a tweet that made me laugh. So this leftist Twitter account tweeted, "A lot of y'all just happen to be gay and aren't remotely queer, and it shows." Yes. Correct. We aren't queer. We don't identify with any of that nonsense. We just happen to be gay. Glad y'all are finally getting it. But of course, she was saying this like it's a bad thing. Queerness is so much more than just not being cis-het. And a lot of you don't realize that. You don't qualify for the queer label if we are getting technical because there's nothing radical about your existence and not championing for minorities in and out of the LGBTQ community. What's that meme that's like, your terms are acceptable, babe? I'm happy not to qualify for your queer label. Now, will you finally stop using it for us against our will? All right, up first, we've got to check in with our friends over at Just Stop Oil, the crazy climate activists who recently targeted Stonehenge, and now Taylor Swift? Two women have been arrested on suspicion of criminal damage after orange paint was sprayed over private jets at Stansford Airport in Essex. In a post on X, Just Stop Oil claimed responsibility and claimed that singer Taylor Swift's aircraft had been parked there, but the airport denied that Swift's jet was at the airfield, according to the BBC. Let's hear from the two young ladies who pulled off this little stunt.
Hi, I'm Jen. This is Cole. We just spray painted the of this jet.
And the one behind it.
Yeah.
It's Cole. I'm 22, and I've just sprayed 2 private jets orange. We need an international treaty against the burning of all oil, coal, and gas. While people are starving, the elite and the rich fly thousands and thousands of feet in the air above us all. Billionaires are not untouchable.
So this is yet another deranged and pointless stunt from the Just Stop Oil crowd, and it's simultaneously kind of hilarious to me, but also sad. For one, I find it so funny that they went there to try to target Taylor Swift's private jet, because Taylor Swift does fly all around the world and has a lot of carbon emissions. And then not only did they end up just spraying 2 random jets and then having to go to, well, it's in the same airfield as Taylor Swift's jet, because I don't think they had any way of identifying or any plan to identify Swift's actual private jet. Turns out her jet wasn't even there. So it's just funny to me that not only are these protests pointless, but they're also remarkably dumb and not particularly well thought out. On the serious side though, it is kind of sad to me to see these young people racking up serious criminal records and frankly horrific Google search results that will haunt them for the rest of their life and probably hurt their ability to get jobs when they hopefully grow out of this crazy delusional radical stage they're in. There is something sad about that. Although at the same time, they are adults and they're just lying in the bed they made for themselves. And I really actually do feel a little bad for these two young women if the Swifties come for them. That is a hardcore fandom you do not want to with. I have mixed feelings on the Taylor Swift criticism. Obviously, I don't support this crazy protest tactic. It's ridiculous. But on the actual criticism from some on the climate left of Taylor Swift, I have mixed feelings. Because Taylor has said that she cares about climate change, yet she has taken a private jet all over the world, which has a lot of carbon emissions, far more than you or I will ever incur in our regular lifetimes and habits. However, she's such a superstar, it's not like she can fly coach. It wouldn't be safe. And she's contributing billions of dollars of economic activity and making so many people happy and spreading so much joy across the world with her tours that I definitely think it's worth the carbon emissions for her to be flying around. Is it a little hypocritical given that she said she cares about climate change? Yeah, but I don't think it makes her the devil, or it certainly doesn't mean she deserves to have her private jet vandalized. And again, these Just Stop Oil activists live in an alternative reality. There's just no universe where the world signs an international treaty to agree to stop using all fossil fuels within a few years. That's never gonna happen. 0% chance. And in fact, the devastation in terms of poverty and human suffering that would entail far exceeds any damage from climate change. It's just not even within the realm of possibility. So if you actually care about addressing this issue, shouldn't you be focusing on solutions that maybe have a 1% chance of actually happening? What do I know? You guys let me know what you think of this latest Just Stop Oil protest. I'm getting concerned by this stuff escalating. It seems to be more frequent, more unhinged, more wild behavior, and they seem to not be seeing that it's bad and that it needs to stop. They seem to be taking the opposite message and just doubling down and going even harder. So I worry that this is going to keep escalating and they're going to keep doing crazy stuff until eventually people get hurt. But you let me know what you think of this latest stunt from Just Stop Oil and whether you think the criticisms of Taylor Swift actually do have any merit. And now let's take a look at Los Angeles' latest homelessness initiative, which is turning out to be pretty darn pricey. Here's some coverage from ABC 7.
Happening today, a grand opening for a high-rise homeless shelter featuring apartments with skyline views, a gym, even a cafe.
Eyewitness News reporter Mark Cotaropolis joins us here in studio with details on this.
We're going to show you what $165 million will get you. It's considered affordable housing, but the cost to build this type of a project, it still adds up. Each unit costs nearly $600,000, and it's being funded by taxpayers. Take a look at the images here. There are 278 units in this 19-story development known as the Weingart Tower. It's intended to help people currently without shelter on Skid Row. This will be LA's largest permanent supportive housing project. There is an entire floor of offices for caseworkers, and the list of amenities is pretty impressive. As you mentioned, there's a gym, an art room, a music room, and a computer room and library. People living here will enjoy 6 common balconies and a cafe. The $165 million project is receiving permanent financing from Proposition HHH, which voters overwhelmingly passed in 2016. The new tower is also receiving state housing funds and $56 million in state tax credits. The grand opening set for later this morning. Several elected officials are going to be there, including Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. And guys, this is really just the beginning. There's more planned. Another tower more than a year away, but it's under construction.
So I'm certainly not against trying to help the homeless, but this strikes me as kind of crazy and remarkably inefficient. You're telling me they're spending tax money to build this bougie complex and others like it at nearly $600,000 per unit? We have to be able to house homeless people at a cheaper rate than that. That is astronomical, y'all. That is literally more than the median rate to get a condo, to purchase a condo in that area. And isn't this kind of insulting to all the working class taxpayers who are going to be paying taxes and don't live anywhere half this nice? Plus, isn't this going to be, unfortunately, kind of a magnet for homeless people to come to LA? It's pretty easy to envision a scenario where they build projects like this and more homeless people come and they just keep having to spend more and more tax money, and before you know, they've totally broke the budget and they're squeezing taxpayers dry. I also worry that this isn't going to necessarily treat the root cause of many of these individuals' issues, which often has to do with mental health or substance abuse or other things that simply providing them housing through taxpayer money isn't going to actually address. But you guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. To me, it's just another example of government inefficiency and wasting our money, because why wouldn't they? It's not their money. It's our money they get to spend. But let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you'd be happy to pay more in taxes to have one of these built near you. Up next, a Republican member of Congress is defending Louisiana's push to require that public school classrooms, including all the way up to the college level, display the 10 Commandments in their classrooms. In an interview with Steve Bannon, Colorado Republican Lauren Boebert defended this, arguing that we should be promoting morality, and I'll let you guys decide for yourself what you think of what she had to say.
Also talk to us about the folks out in your district. What would their thoughts be about Would they be melting down if you had to put 10 commandments in the schools out in that part of Colorado, ma'am?
Certainly not in rural Colorado and in Colorado's 4th district. I think that this is something that we need all throughout our nation. And I'm so proud of Governor Jeff Landry. He's a wonderful man, a great friend of mine. And I'm glad that he's in that position and taking action, because we need morals back in our nation, back in our schools. And if there's anything that we are going to present in front of our children, it's going to be, it should be the Word of God, because this is the one truth that is never going to change and never going to leave them. It's not some woke fad of the day that you can get canceled for believing in 10 years from now. So I don't think that it's bad to have something that says honor your father and mother so that you will live a long life. That is the first commandment that has a promise attached to it. I don't think that it's bad to teach children that adultery is something that you should not do. And also listed in the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not steal. And maybe the left and some of these politicians are having a meltdown over having that right there listed in our classrooms, thou shalt not steal, is because government hates competition. And they don't want our children to realize that that's something you shouldn't be doing.
So that last part was a little funny to me, I will admit. But I totally disagree with Congresswoman Boebert here, and I'm going to explain why. And I also think she's rather hypocritical on some of her points. First, folks like Congressman Boebert are the first ones to drape themselves in the mantle of the First Amendment when it comes to free speech and their right to say things that the left doesn't like, but they seem suddenly okay with violating the First Amendment when it comes to that clause establishing that there can be no establishment of an official state religion. And if you are mandating religious tenets in public school classrooms funded by taxpayers, so government institutions, favoring one religion over all the others and pushing religion on a captive audience that is forced to be there, that clearly violates the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. Supreme Court has ruled on this decades ago and said so just that clearly. So your support for the First Amendment is flexible? That's not really how it's supposed to work, babe. It also bothers me to see a conservative argue that we need the 10 Commandments in schools because we have to teach kids morality. Hold up. So you're saying that it's the government's job to teach kids morality, not families and parents? I have nothing against the 10 Commandments, but you should be teaching that to your child at home. That's your job as a parent. Other parents might choose to teach their kids a different version of religious morality. And if you're like Lauren Boebert, one of the Republican crowd that rightly cries about parental rights, well, now all of a sudden you're fine with trampling on other parents' parental rights. And you think the government should be teaching morality to children rather than teaching them to read or write in public schools, which, by the way, in Louisiana, a ton of the students are failing at that. And there's something hypocritical about people like Lauren Boebert getting up here and saying, oh, well, we need to teach them morality, restore morality to this country, which, I mean, I agree in some ways, but babe, look in the mirror first. You got kicked out of a movie theater for belligerent behavior and getting handsy with your boyfriend's junk in public. Yet you're out here talking like the morality police. Babe, you're out here talking about we need to teach kids not to steal. You didn't even teach your own kid not to steal. Lauren Boebert's 18-year-old son has been charged with 22 crimes, including multiple counts of theft. Now, maybe he's innocent. Could be. I mean, he deserves his day in court, but maybe your focus should be closer to home. There's just something that really rubs me the wrong way when these religious Republican types want to force and push their religion onto other people at all. I disagree with that just in its very premise, but especially when their houses are not in order. And frankly, that is the case a very high percentage of the time. But what do you think, especially my Christian followers and viewers? I want to hear from you, so let me know in the comments. And now, it's time for Brad versus TikTok, my daily segment where I take on the craziest ideas from the Clock app.
Pronoun of the day is slug.
Make sure you're subscribed if you haven't yet. Don't forget to hit that like button to reward my suffering. And now, let's take a look at a TikTok from one Canadian who thinks they are superior to us lowly, unintelligent Americans.
There was no school shooting in Canada today because we can't carry arms. That's why the bad guy had a knife and nobody died. If I had the right to carry a gun to protect myself from the guy with the knife, then the guy with the knife would just already have a gun, meaning everyone's gonna die. Anytime you think next time this is very American of me, just think this is wrong. Americans receive North Korea level of indoctrination to be able to think that the solution to a stabbing is a gun, when the entire rest of the world hears about a school stabbing in Canada and knows the reason it wasn't a mass casualty is because we aren't allowed to carry guns. Even if I were to start carrying a knife to protect myself from a person with a knife, that would normalize more people having knives, meaning more people would get stabbed. I don't understand.
So this video was wild to me because, babe, you just explained why America is superior to Canada. Because here in America, we actually respect people's right to defend themselves legally. And we don't leave them sitting ducks for criminals who don't follow the law. I mean, the logic here is so bizarre. Well, I shouldn't carry a gun to defend myself if somebody tries to stab me because that will normalize carrying guns. So then that criminal would have a gun. Babe, the criminal's already breaking the law. He's already trying to stab you. If he can have a gun, he'll get a gun. He doesn't care what the law says or what's normalized or not. Stabbing people isn't normalized. Do you not hear yourself? Do you not think about what you're about to say before you pop off on TikTok? I mean, she literally said she would rather be defenseless when somebody's trying to stab her than have a knife as well to defend herself because she doesn't want to normalize carrying knives. So baby, you'd rather be dead than alive, but normalize carrying knives as if criminals care what's normalized? Look, guns are used far more times in self-defense every year in the United States than in violent crimes. And the sheer reality is that in this country, we have more guns than people. So that's never really going to change. There's never going to be an America in my lifetime where people, especially criminals, can't get guns. The only question is what we're going to do with law-abiding citizens then. Are we going to allow them to be armed as well? And unlike this Delulu TikToker, I think it's better when people can defend themselves and are armed in the face of a criminal who is armed than if that criminal is armed but the law-abiding people are not. And I don't really care whether that normalizes having a weapon. I care that innocent people aren't left helpless to violent criminals. But that's just me. That's just my crazy, radical American take. And it's kind of crazy to hear her say that we're some North Korea level propaganda state when y'all literally don't have free speech. I've covered Canadian laws on this show where they can literally arrest you just for saying stuff that would be totally protected free speech here in the US. I don't know, man. I'm sure Canada is a lovely place. I have been there to visit a couple times, but I'm still going with the United States every day of the week. That's just me. You'll have to let me know what you think in the comments. And now, before we wrap up today's show, I'll read a couple of your comments that you guys left on yesterday's episode. One person says, as a Christian, I don't agree with shoving any beliefs down people's throats. This goes for the LGBTQ and Christianity, unless it is a private school, of course. You know, maybe we could agree on that. Keep the political LGBT flags out of the classroom and the 10 Commandments. And maybe focus on teaching kids math and reading, because we're falling behind. Another person writes, I'm a lesbian, black, and legal immigrant woman who never used her victim card to get anywhere in life. I appreciate your channel beyond words because common sense is as precious as gold nowadays. I also think you should be a model, by the way, because you are so freaking beautiful, Brad. Keep shining. Oh, thank you so much. And I always really admire and respect when people have these different identity victim cards they could have played in their life, but they don't believe in that and they actually live out their values and don't take the easy way. So good for you, and thanks so much for watching the show. Another person writes, careful, Brad, your right-wing viewers may accuse you of going leftist for criticizing the right wing, even though you've consistently described yourself as center-right instead of totally right-wing. Yeah, I mean, a few people will get angry and they'll unsubscribe and they'll write a long angry comment or something, but I think most people in this show are not hardcore extreme ideologues all the way to one side or the other, or even if they are, they're open-minded. That's why they're here. That's why they're a part of this community. And so they can handle me criticizing a politician from their side or me disagreeing with an opinion they might hold and not rage quit like snowflakes. Most of my followers, I actually think are quite open-minded and like to think about things and have debates and hear different ideas. So I might lose a few people here or there, and that's sad, but that's their choice. But I think most of the people who found this show and who are forming my audience here on YouTube are more open-minded than that. Another person says, Brad, I have an off-topic question, but do you like cats? I'm actually very allergic to cats, so for that reason, not really. But even setting aside my allergy, I'm not a huge fan of cats. Like, they're fine, but I just think dogs are so vastly superior that I don't think I'd ever have a cat if I was allergic or not. Another person says, referring to the 10 Commandments story again, swap this out with the 5 pillars of Islam, and these people would have a wildly different reaction. Yeah, I think many people would have a different reaction, but mine would be the same. No religious indoctrination in public schools. It's that simple. All right, everybody, that is it for this episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. Hit that like button to reward my suffering, and comment with your thoughts. I do read the comments, and I pick a few to respond to in every episode. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please do take a second to rate or review the show. And with that, we'll talk again next week.